Question 1. The review process indicates that an applicant for the Qalam University College entrance exam has submitted an essay that contains passages closely mirroring publicly available online content without proper attribution. The admissions committee is deliberating on how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action for the university? Option A. Immediately reject the applicant's submission and disqualify them from the entrance exam without further communication, citing a breach of academic honesty. Option B. Disregard the similarity, assuming it was an unintentional oversight, and proceed with the application as normal to avoid discouraging potential students. Option C. Contact the applicant to explain the university's policy on academic integrity and plagiarism, request a revised submission, and clearly outline the consequences of future violations. Option D. Forward the applicant's submission to an external plagiarism detection service and await their report before making any decision, without informing the applicant of the ongoing review. The correct answer is C. Contact the applicant to explain the university's policy on academic integrity and plagiarism, request a revised submission, and clearly outline the consequences of future violations. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the fundamental principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected by Qalam University College. The applicant's response reveals a potential misunderstanding of plagiarism and the importance of original work, which are critical for academic success and ethical professional behavior. Careful judgment is required to assess whether the applicant's actions stem from a genuine mistake or a deliberate attempt to deceive. The correct approach involves acknowledging the applicant's submission, clearly explaining the university's policy on plagiarism and academic integrity, and outlining the consequences of such violations. This approach is right because it upholds the university's commitment to academic honesty, which is a cornerstone of its educational mission, and aligns with the ethical standards expected of all students. By directly addressing the issue and educating the applicant, the university reinforces its values and provides an opportunity for the applicant to learn and correct their behavior. This aligns with the principles of fairness and due process, ensuring that the applicant understands the gravity of their actions and the expectations for future academic work. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the submission due to its perceived minor nature would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would undermine the university's commitment to academic integrity, creating a precedent that plagiarism is permissible if not detected or if deemed insignificant. It would also be unfair to other applicants who have adhered to the rules. Another incorrect approach that involves immediate rejection of the application without any explanation or opportunity for the applicant to respond would be ethically problematic. While upholding standards is important, a complete lack of communication or educational feedback fails to foster a learning environment and may be perceived as overly punitive without due consideration. This approach neglects the potential for a misunderstanding and misses an opportunity to guide the applicant. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of the submitted materials against established university policies. When potential violations are identified, the process should include clear communication with the applicant, an explanation of the relevant policies, and an opportunity for the applicant to provide context or clarification. The decision should be based on a fair assessment of the evidence, considering the severity of the violation and the applicant's response, while always prioritizing the university's commitment to academic integrity and ethical conduct. Question 2. What factors determine the successful admission of an applicant to Qalam University College, considering the institution's commitment to holistic evaluation beyond mere academic scores? Option A. The applicant's ability to articulate compelling personal aspirations and future goals in their written application essay. Option B. The applicant's final secondary school examination results, as these are the most objective measure of academic preparedness. Option C. A comprehensive assessment of academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal statement quality, and recommendation letters, weighed according to the university's stated admission rubric. Option D. The number and prestige of extracurricular activities undertaken by the applicant, indicating leadership potential and well-roundedness. Correct answer is C. A comprehensive assessment of academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal statement quality, and recommendation letters, weighed according to the university's stated admission rubric. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the Qalam University College's admission criteria, which are not solely based on academic scores, but also on the holistic assessment of an applicant's potential and suitability for the institution's values. The challenge lies in discerning which factors are given the most weight by the admissions committee, especially when faced with a candidate who excels in some areas but is weaker in others. Careful judgment is required to align the applicant's profile with the university's stated objectives and the specific requirements of the chosen program. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation of all provided application materials, including academic transcripts, extracurricular achievements, personal statements, and any recommendation letters. This approach is correct because it mirrors the comprehensive assessment process typically employed by reputable academic institutions like Qalam University College. Admissions committees are mandated by institutional guidelines to consider a range of qualitative and quantitative factors to ensure a diverse and capable student body. This holistic review process is ethically sound as it provides a fair opportunity for all applicants to present their strengths and mitigates the risk of overlooking promising candidates due to a singular focus on one metric. It aligns with the principle of meritocracy, while also acknowledging the multifaceted nature of student success. An incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on academic scores overlooks the university's stated commitment to a broader assessment of candidates. This failure is a direct contravention of the implicit or explicit guidelines of most university admissions, which aim to identify students with leadership potential, critical thinking skills, and a commitment to community, all of which are often demonstrated through non-academic achievements. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes extracurricular activities over academic performance is equally flawed. While extracurriculars are important, a foundational academic record is usually a prerequisite for success in higher education. Neglecting academic rigor would violate the principle of academic suitability, a core tenet of university admissions. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the personal statement, without considering supporting evidence from transcripts and recommendations, fails to engage in a thorough due diligence process. The personal statement is a self-reported account, and its credibility is enhanced or diminished by corroborating evidence. This approach risks making decisions based on potentially biased or unsubstantiated claims, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of all admission criteria as outlined by Qalam University College. This includes understanding the weighting of different components of the application. Professionals should then meticulously analyze each applicant's submission against these criteria, seeking to identify strengths and weaknesses across all dimensions. If there are ambiguities or areas requiring further clarification, the professional should consult internal guidelines or seek input from senior admissions officers. The ultimate decision should be justifiable based on the established criteria and reflect a balanced and fair assessment of the applicant's overall potential to succeed at the university and contribute to its community. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal that several students in a recent Qalam University College entrance examination appear to have colluded on a specific section of the test, based on identical answers and unusual response patterns. The examination committee is tasked with addressing this potential academic misconduct. Which of the following actions best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and due process as expected within the Qalam University College framework? Option A. Rely on the initial observation of identical answers as definitive proof of collusion and proceed with a penalty without further inquiry. Option B. Immediately disqualify all students suspected of collusion and inform them of the disciplinary action based on the initial findings. Option C. Issue a general warning to all students about the importance of academic integrity in future examinations, without singling out individuals for this particular incident. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected collusion, gathering all relevant evidence, including the examination papers and any supporting documentation, and then provide the implicated students with an opportunity to present their defense before a decision is made. The correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify all students suspected of collusion and inform them of the disciplinary action based on the initial findings. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential misconduct fairly and transparently. The pressure to maintain the college's reputation, coupled with the potential impact on students' futures, necessitates a rigorous and ethical approach to investigation and decision-making. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any actions taken are proportionate, evidence-based, and in line with established procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to Qalam University College's established academic integrity policies and procedures. This approach is right because it prioritizes due process for the student, ensuring they have an opportunity to respond to the allegations and present their case. It also upholds the integrity of the examination process by systematically gathering and evaluating evidence. Regulatory and ethical justification stems from the university's own published guidelines on academic misconduct, which typically mandate a fair hearing, the right to representation, and a decision based on clear evidence. This aligns with broader ethical principles of justice and fairness in academic settings. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disciplinary action without a proper investigation fails to uphold the principle of natural justice. It presumes guilt before evidence is fully examined, and the student has had a chance to defend themselves, which is a significant ethical and procedural failure. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the allegations without adequate review, risks undermining academic standards and allowing academic dishonesty to go unchecked. This would be a failure to adhere to the university's responsibility to maintain the quality and credibility of its assessments. A third incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on anecdotal evidence or hearsay without seeking corroborating documentation or student testimony, lacks the rigor required for a fair and defensible decision. This approach is prone to error and can lead to unjust outcomes, violating the university's commitment to evidence-based decision-making. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific policies and procedures governing academic misconduct at Qalam University College. This involves identifying the alleged infraction, gathering all relevant evidence objectively, providing the accused student with clear notification of the allegations and the process, offering them a fair opportunity to respond, and then making a decision based solely on the presented evidence and established policy. Throughout the process, maintaining confidentiality and impartiality is paramount. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate risk associated with an applicant's previous academic performance, indicating a potential for them to struggle with the rigor of Qalam University College's programs. However, the applicant has demonstrated strong extracurricular achievements and a compelling personal statement expressing a clear passion for their chosen field of study. The admissions committee is tasked with deciding whether to proceed with the application, defer the decision pending further information, or reject the application outright. Option A. Reject the application immediately due to the identified risk in the academic performance section of the risk matrix, prioritizing the avoidance of potential academic failure. Option B. Defer the decision indefinitely until a new academic performance review can be conducted without engaging the applicant further. Option C. Admit the applicant without further review, assuming their extracurricular achievements and personal statement compensate for the academic risk. Option D. Request a personal interview with the applicant to discuss their academic history and assess their motivation and preparedness for the program, and document the interview and the committee's deliberations thoroughly. The correct answer is D. Request a personal interview with the applicant to discuss their academic history and assess their motivation and preparedness for the program, and document the interview and the committee's deliberations thoroughly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic objectives with the ethical imperative to ensure academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The admissions committee must make a judgment call based on incomplete information, where the perceived benefit of admitting a student with potential but a concerning academic record must be weighed against the risk of compromising the college's standards or admitting a student who may struggle and ultimately not succeed. Careful consideration of the university's stated values and the regulatory framework governing admissions is paramount. Correct approach involves a thorough, documented review of the applicant's profile, considering all available information and seeking clarification where necessary. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due diligence expected in academic admissions. Specifically, it requires the committee to 1. Acknowledge the risk identified in the matrix regarding the applicant's academic performance. 2. Seek additional information, such as a personal statement or interview, to understand the context of the applicant's previous academic results and assess their motivation and potential for success at Qalam University College. 3. Document the decision-making process, including the rationale for the final decision, to ensure transparency and accountability. This adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation of a fair and considered admissions process, aiming to admit students who are likely to benefit from and contribute to the academic community, while also upholding the college's reputation. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant solely based on the risk matrix without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of extenuating circumstances or the applicant's potential for growth, thereby potentially excluding a deserving candidate and violating the principle of a holistic review. Another incorrect approach would be to admit the applicant without any further consideration, ignoring the identified risk and potentially admitting a student who is not adequately prepared, which could lead to academic difficulties and a negative impact on the college's academic standing. A third incorrect approach would be to delay the decision indefinitely without a clear process for resolution, which is inefficient and unfair to the applicant. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic and evidence-based evaluation. This involves 1. Identifying and understanding the risks and opportunities presented by each applicant. 2. Gathering all relevant information, including academic records, personal statements, and any supplementary materials. 3. Applying established criteria and university policies consistently. 4. Documenting the entire process and the rationale for each decision. 5. Seeking consensus or expert opinion when faced with complex cases. This structured approach ensures fairness, transparency, and adherence to regulatory and ethical standards. Question 5. Process analysis reveals that a prospective student, expressing significant anxiety about their readiness for the Qalam University College entrance exam, has directly approached a member of the examination preparation team, inquiring about the possibility of receiving advance information or hints regarding the exam content. The preparation team member is aware of the university's strict policies on academic integrity and the importance of a fair and unbiased assessment. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and procedurally correct response for the preparation team member? Option A. Provide the student with a general overview of the types of topics that will be covered, without revealing specific questions or answers, to alleviate some of their anxiety. Option B. Ignore the student's request and hope they do not pursue it further, as direct confrontation might create an uncomfortable situation. Option C. Politely but firmly decline the request, explaining that providing any advance information would compromise the integrity of the examination and is strictly prohibited by university regulations, while also offering to direct the student to official study resources and guidance on effective preparation strategies. Option D. Inform the student that, while direct answers cannot be provided, there are unofficial channels where such information might be obtainable, and suggest the student explore those avenues discreetly. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly decline the request, explaining that providing any advance information would compromise the integrity of the examination and is strictly prohibited by university regulations, while also offering to direct the student to official study resources and guidance on effective preparation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative of academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as significant as the Qalam University College entrance exam, can lead some students to consider unethical shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the fairness and validity of the examination process, while also guiding students towards legitimate means of achieving their educational goals. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between acceptable assistance and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves a proactive and educational stance, emphasizing the university's commitment to academic integrity and providing clear guidance on acceptable study methods. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and transparency expected in any educational institution. Specifically, it upholds the spirit of the Qalam University College entrance exam by ensuring that all candidates are assessed on their own merit, without the influence of unearned advantages. This aligns with the foundational ethical principles of education, which prioritize honest learning and genuine achievement. An incorrect approach that involves directly providing answers or solutions to students before the exam is a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This constitutes academic dishonesty and undermines the entire purpose of the entrance examination, which is to evaluate a student's preparedness and aptitude. Such an action would violate the trust placed in the examination administrators and the integrity of the Qalam University College. It would also create an unfair playing field for other candidates who have prepared diligently through legitimate means. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring a student's overt request for exam answers, is also professionally unacceptable. While not as directly complicit as providing answers, inaction in the face of clear intent to cheat demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the institution's standards. This passive acceptance of potential misconduct can be interpreted as condoning unethical behavior and contributes to a culture where academic integrity is not taken seriously. It fails to address the root issue and leaves the door open for future breaches. A third incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the student's request without any further engagement or explanation, is also problematic. While it avoids direct participation in cheating, it misses a crucial opportunity for education and guidance. Students may be seeking answers due to a lack of understanding about what constitutes acceptable preparation or due to overwhelming pressure. A professional response should involve educating the student about the importance of academic integrity and directing them to appropriate resources for legitimate study support. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a tiered approach. First, recognize the ethical implications of the student's request. Second, consult the specific guidelines and regulations of the Qalam University College entrance exam regarding academic integrity and student conduct. Third, engage with the student to understand their motivations and to educate them about the consequences of academic dishonesty. Fourth, provide clear direction on legitimate study resources and support mechanisms. Finally, if the student persists in seeking illicit advantages, escalate the matter according to university policy, ensuring that the integrity of the examination process is protected. Question 6. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential issue with an applicant's submitted academic credentials for the Qalam University College entrance exam. During the review process, it was discovered that a significant achievement listed on the applicant's profile appears to be inconsistent with verifiable records. The admissions committee is aware of the applicant's strong performance in other assessment areas of the entrance exam. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Qalam University College Admissions Committee to take in this situation? Option A. Proceed with the admission of the applicant, considering their strong performance in other areas of the entrance exam, and address the credential discrepancy internally without involving the applicant directly at this stage. Option B. Immediately reject the applicant's application based on the discovered discrepancy, without further communication or investigation into the matter. Option C. Directly inform the applicant of the discrepancy, request a clear explanation and supporting documentation, and explain the university's policy on academic integrity and the potential consequences of misrepresentation before making a final decision. Option D. Advise the applicant to withdraw their application voluntarily to avoid a formal rejection due to the credential issue. The correct answer is C. Directly inform the applicant of the discrepancy, request a clear explanation and supporting documentation, and explain the university's policy on academic integrity and the potential consequences of misrepresentation before making a final decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The university entrance exam, as a gatekeeper to higher education, demands a rigorous and fair assessment process. Misrepresenting qualifications or engaging in deceptive practices undermines this process and devalues the achievements of genuine candidates. Careful judgment is required to navigate the student's situation, while adhering strictly to Qalam University College's established regulations and ethical guidelines for admissions. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the student regarding the discovered discrepancy. This approach prioritizes honesty and adherence to the university's stated admission policies. By clearly explaining the implications of the falsified information and the consequences of such actions, the admissions committee upholds the integrity of the entrance examination process. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for accurate applicant information, as stipulated by Qalam University College's admission framework. The university has a responsibility to ensure that all admitted students meet the stated entry criteria and have achieved them through legitimate means. An incorrect approach would be to overlook the discrepancy due to the student's perceived potential or the desire to meet enrollment targets. This would constitute a failure to uphold the university's admission standards and would be ethically unsound, as it rewards dishonesty. It also creates an unfair advantage over other applicants who have truthfully presented their qualifications. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student without any attempt at dialogue or clarification. While upholding integrity is crucial, a complete lack of communication before a final decision can be perceived as overly punitive and may not allow for understanding of the student's intent or circumstances, even if the outcome remains the same. However, the primary failure here is not in the severity of the consequence, but in the lack of a structured, ethical process that includes communication and adherence to established procedures for handling such discrepancies. The university's regulations likely outline a process for addressing incomplete or inaccurate applications, and bypassing this process is a procedural and ethical failure. Professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the discrepancy and its potential implications. 2. Consulting the relevant Qalam University College admission regulations and ethical guidelines. 3. Engaging in direct, professional communication with the applicant to understand the situation and explain the university's position. 4. Making a decision based on the established regulations and the information gathered, ensuring fairness and consistency. 5. Documenting the entire process and the final decision. Question 7. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the number of students requesting clarification on specific question types within the Qalam University College entrance exam, particularly those related to analytical reasoning. A student approaches you, a proctor, and asks if they can use their personal notes, which contain summaries of analytical reasoning techniques, to help them understand the questions better during the exam. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Inform the student that while personal notes are not permitted, you can briefly explain the general principles of analytical reasoning to them to help them understand the questions. Option B. Suggest the student try to recall the analytical reasoning techniques from memory, as this is a test of their existing knowledge and ability to apply it without external aids. Option C. Advise the student that they must adhere strictly to the Qalam University College entrance exam's official rules regarding permitted materials, and clarify that personal notes are not allowed unless explicitly stated in the exam guidelines. Option D. Allow the student to use their personal notes, explaining that understanding the questions is paramount for a fair assessment, and that such notes are generally considered helpful study aids. The correct answer is C. Advise the student that they must adhere strictly to the Qalam University College entrance exam's official rules regarding permitted materials, and clarify that personal notes are not allowed unless explicitly stated in the exam guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret and apply the Qalam University College entrance exam's specific regulatory framework, which likely emphasizes academic integrity and fair assessment practices. The core of the challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate academic inquiry and potential academic misconduct, necessitating a careful and principled approach to ensure compliance with the exam's guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Qalam University College entrance exam's official documentation, including any stated policies on academic integrity, acceptable use of resources, and the definition of plagiarism or cheating. This approach is correct because it directly adheres to the established rules and guidelines set forth by the university for its entrance examination. By consulting the official framework, the individual ensures their actions are aligned with the university's expectations and avoids any misinterpretation of what constitutes acceptable behavior during the exam. This demonstrates a commitment to academic honesty and respect for the examination process. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general knowledge about university exams or common academic practices applies without verifying them against the specific Qalam University College entrance exam regulations. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the explicit jurisdiction of the exam. Relying on assumptions or external information without consulting the official Qalam University College entrance exam framework is ethically unsound, as it risks violating the exam's integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to seek advice from individuals who are not officially sanctioned to interpret or provide guidance on the exam's regulations, as this could lead to misinformation and non-compliance. This is an ethical failure because it introduces an unreliable and potentially biased source of information, undermining the fairness and validity of the examination process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with identifying the specific regulatory framework governing the situation. In this case, it is the Qalam University College entrance exams rules. The next step is to actively seek out and thoroughly understand these regulations. If ambiguity exists, the professional should consult official channels designated by the Qalam University College for clarification. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are grounded in established rules and ethical principles, promoting fairness and integrity. Question 8. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of student requests for access to past entrance examination papers for preparation purposes. A prospective student, having heard about the rigor of the Qalam University College entrance exam, approaches the admissions office seeking to obtain copies of previous exam papers to better understand the question style and difficulty. The admissions officer is aware that university policy strictly prohibits the dissemination of any examination materials, past or present, to maintain the integrity and security of the entrance examination process. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer? Option A. Politely inform the student that university policy strictly prohibits sharing past examination papers to ensure the fairness and integrity of the entrance examination for all applicants, and suggest alternative preparation resources provided by the university. Option B. Tell the student that the university cannot provide past papers and offer no further explanation or alternative suggestions. Option C. Advise the student to search for past papers on unofficial online forums, as these may contain relevant material. Option D. Provide the student with copies of the most recent past examination papers, explaining that this is an exception made to assist a motivated applicant. The correct answer is A. Politely inform the student that university policy strictly prohibits sharing past examination papers to ensure the fairness and integrity of the entrance examination for all applicants, and suggest alternative preparation resources provided by the university. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic need and the university's established policies on academic integrity and data privacy. The student's request, while seemingly benign, touches upon sensitive areas that require careful navigation to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance. The Qalam University College entrance exam framework emphasizes a commitment to fair assessment and the protection of student information. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the student, explaining the university's policy regarding the sharing of examination materials and the rationale behind it. This aligns with the principles of academic integrity, which prohibit the unauthorized disclosure or use of examination content. Furthermore, it respects the privacy of other candidates and the security of the examination process. By adhering to established policies, the university demonstrates its commitment to a fair and equitable assessment environment for all applicants. This approach prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory adherence over immediate student satisfaction, which is crucial in maintaining the credibility of the entrance examination. An incorrect approach would be to accede to the student's request by providing access to past examination papers. This action would directly violate the principles of academic integrity by compromising the security and confidentiality of examination materials. It would also undermine the fairness of the entrance exam for future applicants, as it would provide an unfair advantage. Such a breach could lead to reputational damage for the university and potential disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request without providing any explanation. This demonstrates a lack of professionalism and a failure to engage with student concerns, even if the request cannot be fulfilled. It could lead to student dissatisfaction and a perception of unresponsiveness from the university. A third incorrect approach would be to offer a vague or misleading response that does not clearly address the student's request or the university's policies. This can create confusion and distrust, and ultimately fails to resolve the situation effectively, while still potentially exposing the university to risks if the student misinterprets the response. The professional decision-making process in such situations involves 1. Understanding the student's request and underlying motivation. 2. Identifying the relevant university policies and ethical guidelines. 3. Assessing the potential risks and consequences of fulfilling or denying the request. 4. Communicating a clear, respectful, and policy-compliant response to the student. 5. Documenting the interaction and the decision made. Question 9. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a potential conflict of interest arising from a faculty member's relative being an applicant for the Qalam University College entrance examination, with a moderate impact on the perceived fairness of the admissions process. Considering Qalam University College's internal policies on academic integrity and admissions, what is the most appropriate initial step to manage this identified risk? Option A. Document the risk and monitor the situation without taking further action, assuming the faculty member will act ethically. Option B. Immediately escalate the situation to the head of admissions and the relevant faculty member's department head, providing a detailed summary of the risk matrix findings and requesting guidance on recusal or alternative examination arrangements. Option C. Inform the applicant directly that their relative's involvement creates a potential conflict and that they should seek admission through a different institution. Option D. Advise the faculty member to withdraw their relative from the examination to avoid any appearance of impropriety. The correct answer is B. Immediately escalate the situation to the head of admissions and the relevant faculty member's department head, providing a detailed summary of the risk matrix findings and requesting guidance on recusal or alternative examination arrangements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret a risk matrix, a common tool in regulatory compliance and risk management, and apply it to a specific situation involving potential conflicts of interest. The challenge lies in accurately assessing the severity of identified risks and determining the appropriate course of action based on Qalam University College's internal policies and ethical guidelines, which are paramount for maintaining academic integrity and trust. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor, manageable risks and those that necessitate immediate escalation or intervention. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the university's established risk management framework and its specific policies on conflicts of interest. This approach prioritizes a systematic evaluation of the identified risks against the university's risk appetite and tolerance levels. It necessitates consulting the relevant internal documentation, such as the Qalam University College Code of Conduct and its conflict of interest policy, determine the appropriate reporting and mitigation procedures. This aligns with the ethical imperative to act with integrity and transparency, ensuring that all potential conflicts are managed in a way that protects the university's reputation and the fairness of its processes. Adhering to these internal guidelines is a direct reflection of compliance with the spirit and letter of the university's regulatory framework for its entrance examinations. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the identified risks as minor without a proper assessment against established criteria. This fails to acknowledge the potential for even seemingly small risks to escalate or to have a cumulative negative impact on the integrity of the entrance exam process. It also bypasses the established procedural safeguards designed to ensure fairness and prevent undue influence. Another incorrect approach would be to take immediate, unilateral action without consulting the university's policies or seeking guidance from the designated authority. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the proper reporting lines and decision-making protocols within the institution. Such an approach could lead to inconsistent application of rules, potential procedural errors, and an inability to effectively manage the identified risks in accordance with the university's overarching compliance strategy. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the perceived intent of the individuals involved rather than the objective risks presented by the situation. While intent can be a factor, regulatory compliance and ethical conduct are primarily concerned with observable actions and their potential consequences. Overlooking the objective risks based on a subjective assessment of intent would be a significant failure in professional judgment and adherence to established risk management principles. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify and clearly define the risks presented. 2. Consult relevant internal policies, codes of conduct, and regulatory guidelines specific to Qalam University College. 3. Assess the severity and likelihood of each risk against the university's risk appetite. 4. Determine the appropriate reporting and mitigation procedures as outlined in the university's framework. 5. Seek guidance from designated supervisors or compliance officers when uncertainty exists or when the risks are significant. 6. Document all assessments, decisions, and actions taken. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed partnership with a company known for questionable labor practices could significantly boost Qalam University College's endowment fund through substantial sponsorship. However, this partnership could also expose the university to reputational damage and conflict with its stated commitment to ethical student development and corporate social responsibility. Considering Qalam University College's internal guidelines on ethical partnerships and national educational standards, which course of action best upholds professional responsibility? Option A. Negotiate a revised sponsorship agreement that requires the company to publicly commit to improving its labor practices before the partnership is finalized. Option B. Accept the sponsorship and focus solely on the financial benefits, assuming the university's brand will insulate it from any negative repercussions. Option C. Reject the sponsorship outright due to the company's past ethical issues, prioritizing the university's reputation and ethical commitments above potential financial gain. Option D. Accept the sponsorship after conducting a thorough review of the company's current ethical standing and implementing strict oversight mechanisms to ensure the partnership aligns with the university's values. Correct answer is D. Accept the sponsorship after conducting a thorough review of the company's current ethical standing and implementing strict oversight mechanisms to ensure the partnership aligns with the university's values. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against potential long-term reputational and ethical risks, all within the specific regulatory environment of Qalam University College. The decision-maker must navigate the university's commitment to academic integrity and ethical conduct, as outlined in its internal guidelines and any applicable national educational standards, while also considering the financial implications for the college. A superficial cost-benefit analysis that ignores these non-quantifiable but critical factors would be professionally negligent. The correct approach involves prioritizing the university's core values and regulatory obligations over short-term financial gains. This means thoroughly investigating the ethical implications of the proposed partnership, ensuring compliance with Qalam University College's Code of Conduct and any relevant national regulations governing educational institutions and their affiliations. The justification for this approach lies in the fundamental ethical duty of educational institutions to uphold integrity, maintain public trust, and provide a responsible learning environment. Failure to do so can lead to severe reputational damage, loss of accreditation, and erosion of stakeholder confidence, far outweighing any immediate financial benefit. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial returns of the partnership, disregarding the ethical concerns, fails to meet the professional standards expected of university administration. This approach violates the ethical principle of due diligence and responsible stewardship of the institution's reputation. It also likely contravenes Qalam University College's internal policies on partnerships and ethical conduct, which would mandate a comprehensive risk assessment that includes ethical and reputational factors. Another incorrect approach might be to proceed with the partnership without adequate consultation or transparency, assuming that as long as the financial benefits are clear, the ethical considerations can be managed later. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to adhere to principles of good governance and ethical leadership. It risks creating a situation where ethical breaches are discovered after the fact, making remediation more difficult and damaging. A professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve a multifaceted assessment. This includes 1. Identifying all potential benefits and costs, both quantifiable and unquantifiable. 2. Thoroughly researching and understanding the ethical implications and potential reputational risks associated with the proposed partner and project. 3. Consulting relevant internal policies and external regulations specific to Qalam University College and its operating jurisdiction. 4. Seeking input from relevant stakeholders, including academic staff, ethics committees, and legal counsel. 5. Making a decision that aligns with the university's mission, values, and long-term sustainability, even if it means foregoing immediate financial advantages. Question 11. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Qalam University College entrance exam is a critical determinant for admission and future academic success. A student, feeling immense pressure due to this benchmark, discovers a rumor circulating among peers about a method to access past exam papers that were allegedly leaked by a disgruntled former employee. The student is considering whether to pursue this information to gain an advantage. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and compliant course of action for the student? Option A. To disregard the rumor and focus solely on preparing for the exam using officially provided study materials and their own understanding. Option B. To discreetly inquire further about the leaked past exam papers to assess their authenticity and potential usefulness. Option C. To share the rumor with other prospective students to gauge their interest and potentially collaborate on obtaining the papers. Option D. To attempt to contact the former employee directly to confirm the existence of the leaked papers and negotiate their acquisition. The correct answer is A. To disregard the rumor and focus solely on preparing for the exam using officially provided study materials and their own understanding. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially when benchmark analysis highlights its significance, can lead to temptation to seek unfair advantages. Careful judgment is required to navigate this pressure ethically and in accordance with the Qalam University College entrance exam's specific regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a student independently preparing for the exam, relying solely on their own knowledge and understanding, and adhering strictly to the examination rule and guidelines provided by Qalam University College. This aligns with the core principles of academic integrity, which are fundamental to any educational institution. Specifically, it upholds the spirit of fair assessment and ensures that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit, as implicitly mandated by the existence of a standardized entrance examination designed to gauge individual aptitude. An incorrect approach that involves seeking or using unauthorized assistance, such as obtaining exam questions in advance, directly violates the principles of academic honesty. This action undermines the validity of the examination process and constitutes a form of academic misconduct. Such behavior is typically prohibited by university regulations and ethical codes, leading to severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential blacklisting from future admissions. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator or administrator, is not only a violation of academic integrity, but also a serious ethical and potentially legal offense. This demonstrates a disregard for the established rules and a willingness to engage in corrupt practices, which are universally condemned in academic and professional settings. This approach erodes trust in the examination system and is a clear breach of ethical conduct. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination rules and ethical expectations. Students should prioritize honest preparation and recognize that the purpose of an entrance exam is to assess their genuine capabilities. When faced with pressure or temptation, they should reflect on the long-term consequences of unethical behavior, which can far outweigh any perceived short-term gain. Adherence to the stated regulations and a commitment to personal integrity are paramount. Question 12. System analysis indicates that a prospective candidate for the Qalam University College entrance exam has discovered an online forum where individuals claim to have access to leaked questions from previous administrations of the exam. The candidate is under significant pressure to secure admission. Which of the following actions best upholds the integrity of the Qalam University College entrance exam and its regulatory framework? Option A. Attempt to purchase the alleged leaked questions from the forum administrators to gain an exclusive advantage. Option B. Download the alleged leaked questions and use them as a primary study resource to ensure a high score. Option C. Share the forum link with close friends who are also applying to the university, suggesting they review the material cautiously. Option D. Immediately cease all engagement with the forum and report the existence of the forum and its content to the Qalam University College Admissions Committee. The correct answer is D. Immediately cease all engagement with the forum and report the existence of the forum and its content to the Qalam University College Admissions Committee. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as critical as the Qalam University College entrance exam, can lead individuals to consider shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing this exam, which is paramount for ensuring fairness and the validity of the assessment process. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate study methods and prohibited actions. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Qalam University College entrance exam's stated regulations regarding acceptable study materials and pre-exam preparation. This means relying solely on officially sanctioned resources and avoiding any form of unauthorized assistance or information dissemination. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it respects the integrity of the examination process, ensuring a level playing field for all candidates. It aligns with the principles of fairness and honesty that are fundamental to academic institutions. An incorrect approach of sharing specific, potentially exam-predictive questions or answers with other candidates before the exam is a direct violation of academic integrity rules. This constitutes an act of academic dishonesty, undermining the purpose of the entrance exam as a measure of individual merit and knowledge. Such actions could lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the exam and potential blacklisting from future admissions. Another incorrect approach, that of using unauthorized study guides that claim to contain actual exam questions from previous years, is also problematic. While not direct collusion, it relies on potentially illicitly obtained information and can create an unfair advantage. If these guides are not officially sanctioned by Qalam University College, their use could be considered a breach of exam regulations, as the university aims to test current knowledge and aptitude, not memorization of past, potentially leaked content. A third incorrect approach, that of seeking assistance from current students or alumni who may have recent knowledge of the exam's format or content without explicit university permission, falls into a gray area that leans towards unethical. While general advice might be permissible, specific insights into question types or content that could provide an unfair advantage would violate the spirit of independent assessment. The professional reasoning process for navigating such situations involves a clear understanding of the exam's governing regulations. Candidates should proactively seek out and review the official guidelines provided by Qalam University College. When in doubt about the permissibility of a particular study method or information source, the safest and most ethical course of action is to err on the side of caution and avoid it, or to seek clarification directly from the university's admissions office. Prioritizing integrity over perceived shortcuts is essential for long-term academic and professional success. Question 13. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of data misuse if candidate personal information is collected without a clearly defined and communicated purpose directly related to the Qalam University College entrance exam assessment. Which of the following approaches best mitigates this risk while adhering to ethical and regulatory expectations for university admissions? Option A. Request detailed financial information from all applicants to assess their socioeconomic background, even if this is not a stated criterion for admission to the Qalam University College entrance exam. Option B. Gather basic academic records and contact information, and then use this data to proactively market other university programs to applicants who may not be successful in their initial application. Option C. Obtain explicit consent from applicants for the collection of specific data, points strictly necessary for evaluating their academic potential and suitability for the Qalam University College entrance exam, clearly outlining how this data will be used and protected. Option D. Collect a comprehensive range of personal details from all applicants, including social media handles and family contact information, to build a holistic profile for assessment. The correct answer is D. Collect a comprehensive range of personal details from all applicants, including social media handles and family contact information, to build a holistic profile for assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Qalam University College entrance exam framework emphasizes integrity and responsible data handling. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any information gathered for the exam preparation process does not inadvertently compromise privacy or violate data protection principles. The correct approach involves a structured and transparent method of data collection that is directly relevant to assessing a candidate's suitability for the Qalam University College entrance exam. This approach prioritizes obtaining consent and clearly communicating the purpose of data usage, aligning with the principles of fairness and accountability embedded in the university's ethical guidelines and any applicable data protection regulations governing educational institutions in its jurisdiction. The focus is on collecting only what is necessary for the stated purpose of the entrance examination, ensuring that candidates are fully informed and have control over their personal information. An incorrect approach that involves broadly collecting personal details without a clear, stated purpose related to the entrance exam assessment would be ethically and regulatorily unsound. This failure would stem from a lack of transparency and potentially a violation of data minimization principles, which stipulate that only data essential for a specific purpose should be collected. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing candidate information with third parties without explicit consent for purposes unrelated to the entrance exam, would represent a significant breach of trust and a violation of privacy regulations. This demonstrates a disregard for candidate confidentiality and the university's duty of care. A third incorrect approach, using collected data for marketing or unrelated recruitment activities without prior consent, would also be a failure, as it misrepresents the initial purpose for which the data was provided and exploits the candidate's information for unintended benefits. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objective of data collection in the context of the Qalam University College entrance exam. This should be followed by identifying the minimum data required to achieve that objective. Subsequently, a transparent communication strategy with candidates regarding data usage and consent mechanisms must be established. Finally, robust data security and retention policies should be implemented to ensure compliance with all relevant ethical and regulatory standards. Question 14. The control framework reveals that a fellow candidate, during a practice session for the Qalam University College entrance exam, was observed discreetly using a pre-written set of notes containing key formulas and definitions that are explicitly prohibited from being accessed during the actual examination. This observation occurred in a supervised setting designed to simulate exam conditions. What is the most appropriate course of action for the observer, strictly adhering to the Qalam University College entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Discreetly advise the fellow candidate to cease using the notes, suggesting they rely on their own preparation. Option B. Immediately report the observed use of prohibited notes to the invigilator or examination supervisor, providing a factual account of the incident. Option C. Ignore the incident, assuming it was an isolated mistake and not indicative of intent to cheat. Option D. Confront the fellow candidate directly and demand they surrender the notes. The correct answer is B. Immediately report the observed use of prohibited notes to the invigilator or examination supervisor, providing a factual account of the incident. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially one as critical as the Qalam University College entrance exam, can lead individuals to consider shortcuts or unethical means. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and responding to potential breaches of the exam's control framework, which is designed to ensure fairness and validity. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate academic support and prohibited forms of assistance. The correct approach involves a proactive and ethical response to the observed situation. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the examination process and adheres strictly to the Qalam University College entrance exam stated regulations. It involves reporting the observed behavior to the appropriate examination authorities without delay, providing clear and factual details of the observation. This aligns with the ethical duty of all participants to uphold the standards of the examination and prevent any form of academic dishonesty. The regulatory framework for the Qalam University College entrance exam, by its very nature, mandates such reporting to maintain a level playing field and ensure that all candidates are assessed fairly based on their own merit. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed behavior. This failure stems from a disregard for the control framework and an abdication of the ethical responsibility to maintain academic integrity. In not reporting, the individual implicitly condones the potential misconduct, thereby undermining the fairness of the examination for all other candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and attempt to resolve the issue without involving the official examination authorities. This bypasses the established procedures for handling academic dishonesty and could lead to an escalation of the situation or an incomplete resolution. Failing to address the systemic implications of such behavior within the examination context. Both these approaches violate the spirit and letter of any examinations control framework, which relies on reporting mechanisms to function effectively. Professionals facing similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical guidelines. This involves 1. Recognizing the potential breach of regulations. 2. Consulting the specific rules and guidelines of the examination body, in this case, the Qalam University College entrance exam. 3. Reporting the observed incident factually and promptly to the designated authority. 4. Avoiding personal intervention or judgment outside of the official reporting channels. This systematic approach ensures that all actions are aligned with regulatory requirements and ethical principles, safeguarding the integrity of the assessment process. Question 15. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a student submitting work that contains unacknowledged sources, categorized as a low to moderate risk to academic integrity. A faculty member suspects a student in their course may have engaged in such behavior based on stylistic inconsistencies and unusual phrasing in a submitted assignment. According to the Qalam University College's regulatory framework for academic integrity, what is the most appropriate initial step for the faculty member to take? Option A. Immediately report the student for academic misconduct without further investigation or review of university procedures. Option B. Consult the Qalam University College's academic integrity policy and relevant guidelines for faculty on handling suspected cases of academic misconduct, and then proceed according to those established procedures. Option C. Directly confront the student with the suspicion and demand an explanation before consulting any university policies. Option D. Ignore the suspicion as the risk matrix indicates a moderate likelihood and low to moderate risk, suggesting it may not warrant significant attention. The correct answer is C. Directly confront the student with the suspicion and demand an explanation before consulting any university policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret a risk matrix, a common tool in regulatory compliance and risk management, and then apply the appropriate ethical and regulatory principles of Qalam University College to a specific situation. The challenge lies in moving beyond a superficial understanding of the matrix to a nuanced application that aligns with the university's established guidelines for academic integrity and student conduct. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen course of action is both procedurally sound and ethically defensible, upholding the university's commitment to a fair and honest academic environment. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Qalam University College's academic integrity policy, specifically focusing on the definitions of plagiarism and academic misconduct and the prescribed disciplinary procedures. This approach is right because it directly addresses the university's established regulatory framework. By consulting the official policy, the individual ensures that their actions are grounded in the explicit rules and guidelines set forth by the institution, thereby guaranteeing procedural fairness and adherence to the established standards of academic conduct. This aligns with the principle of acting within the defined scope of authority and responsibility, as expected in any institutional setting. An incorrect approach would be to make an immediate judgment based solely on the perceived severity of the risk, without consulting the university's specific policies. This fails to acknowledge the procedural requirements for addressing academic misconduct, potentially leading to an unfair or arbitrary decision. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the situation as minor without proper investigation, which violates the university's obligation to uphold academic standards and could set a precedent for future misconduct. A third incorrect approach would be to seek external advice without first exhausting internal university procedures, which undermines the established governance structure and the authority of the university's own policies and disciplinary bodies. Each of these incorrect approaches risks violating the university's regulations, compromising ethical standards, and damaging the institution's reputation for fairness and academic rigor. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify the relevant university policies and regulations. Second, gather all pertinent facts and evidence. Third, assess the situation against the established policies. Fourth, determine the appropriate course of action in accordance with the university's procedures. And finally, document the decision and the rationale behind it. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, consistent, and defensible, upholding both regulatory compliance and ethical integrity. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a data breach occurring during the upcoming Qalam University College entrance exam administration due to potential unauthorized access to student registration details. A faculty member, concerned about ensuring a fair examination environment, believes they have identified a pattern of suspicious registration activity that could indicate fraudulent applications. They are considering accessing the student registration database directly to investigate this pattern before the exam commences. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Ignore the suspicious patterns as they are not definitively proven to be fraudulent and could be a false alarm to avoid unnecessary disruption. Option B. Report the observed suspicious registration patterns to the Examination Oversight Committee and request authorized access to the database for further investigation. Option C. Immediately access the student registration database to investigate the suspicious activity and report any findings to the Examination Oversight Committee. Option D. Share the observed suspicious registration patterns with a trusted colleague outside the Examination Committee to get their opinion on the validity of the concerns. The correct answer is C. Immediately access the student registration database to investigate the suspicious activity and report any findings to the Examination Oversight Committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Qalam University College entrance exam framework emphasizes integrity and responsible data handling. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any information gathering is conducted in a manner that is both effective and compliant with established guidelines. The correct approach involves a structured and authorized process for accessing and utilizing information. This aligns with the principles of data governance and security mandated by the Qalam University College entrance exam framework. Specifically, it requires seeking explicit permission from the relevant authority and adhering to the defined protocols for data access. This ensures that information is obtained legally, ethically, and in a way that maintains the trust and confidentiality expected within an academic institution. An incorrect approach that bypasses established procedures and directly accesses sensitive student information without authorization represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action violates principles of data privacy and confidentiality, potentially leading to breaches of trust and disciplinary action. It demonstrates a disregard for the established governance framework designed to protect student data. Another incorrect approach, which involves sharing the sensitive information with unauthorized individuals, further exacerbates the ethical and regulatory breach. This action not only compromises the privacy of the students, but also undermines the integrity of the examination process and the institution's commitment to data security. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's policies and the regulatory framework governing data access and handling. When faced with a need for information, professionals should first identify the source of the information and the appropriate channels for obtaining it. If direct access is not permitted, the next step is to seek authorization from the designated authority. If authorization is granted, all subsequent actions must strictly adhere to the stipulated guidelines. If authorization is denied, or if the information is deemed too sensitive for general access, alternative, compliant methods for achieving the objective should be explored. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are not only effective, but also ethically sound and legally compliant. Question 17. Upon reviewing the applications for the upcoming academic year, an admissions committee member at Qalam University College identifies a candidate who, while meeting the minimum academic requirements, possesses a family background with significant financial resources and strong connections within the local community. The committee member is aware that admitting this student could potentially lead to substantial future donations and positive public relations for the university. However, the established admissions criteria do not explicitly account for such external benefits. What is the most ethically and professionally sound course of action for the committee member? Option A. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the predefined academic and personal criteria outlined in the Qalam University College admissions policy, disregarding any potential future benefits to the university. Option B. Seek immediate guidance from senior university administrators on how to best leverage this applicant's background for the university's benefit, without first consulting the official admissions policy. Option C. Recommend a separate, informal review process for applicants with influential backgrounds to be conducted outside the standard admissions committee procedures. Option D. Advocate for the applicant's admission by highlighting the potential for future financial contributions and positive publicity to the admissions committee, suggesting a deviation from strict adherence to academic criteria. Correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the predefined academic and personal criteria outlined in the Qalam University College admissions policy, disregarding any potential future benefits to the university. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve positive outcomes for the university. The admissions committee member must navigate the ethical obligation to uphold fair and objective evaluation standards against potential institutional pressures or personal biases. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the admissions process remains transparent, equitable, and free from undue influence, thereby safeguarding the reputation and integrity of Qalam University College. The correct approach involves a commitment to the established Qalam University College admissions policies and guidelines. This means rigorously applying the predefined criteria to all applicants, irrespective of their background or any perceived potential benefit to the university. The ethical justification lies in the principle of fairness and equal opportunity, ensuring that every applicant is assessed on their merits according to the stated requirements. This approach aligns with the fundamental ethical duty of an admissions committee member to act impartially and to maintain the credibility of the institution's selection process. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established admissions criteria to favor an applicant based on their family's potential to contribute financially or through connections. This action violates the principle of meritocracy and fairness, as it introduces external factors not considered in the official selection process. Such a deviation undermines the integrity of the admissions system and could lead to the selection of less qualified candidates, potentially impacting the academic standards of the university. It also creates a precedent for preferential treatment, eroding trust in the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to consult with senior university officials for guidance on how to handle this specific applicant without first thoroughly reviewing the existing admissions policies. While seeking advice can be beneficial, doing so without a foundational understanding of the established rules can lead to interpretations that are not aligned with the university's stated objectives or ethical framework. This can result in decisions that appear arbitrary or influenced by personal opinions rather than objective criteria, thereby compromising the fairness of the process. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a multi-step process. First, a thorough understanding and adherence to the Qalam University College's official admissions policies and ethical guidelines are paramount. Second, when faced with ambiguity or a potentially conflicting situation, the professional should consult the relevant policy documents to ensure their actions are compliant. Third, if clarification is still needed, seeking advice from designated university ethics officers or the admissions committee chair while referencing the specific policy in question is appropriate. Finally, maintaining detailed records of all decisions and the rationale behind them is crucial for transparency and accountability. Question 18. The efficiency study reveals potential cost savings and streamlined administrative processes related to the Qalam University College entrance examination. However, it does not explicitly assess the impact of these proposed changes on the fairness, validity, or reliability of the examination as a measure of academic preparedness. What is the most appropriate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Immediately implement the proposed changes to realize the identified cost savings and administrative efficiencies. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of changes that offer the greatest cost savings, even if they might slightly alter the examination format or administration. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the efficiency study's findings, engaging academic departments and faculty involved in the entrance exam to assess the potential impact on exam integrity and educational quality before implementing any changes. Option D. Disregard the efficiency study, as it does not directly address the academic aspects of the entrance examination. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the efficiency study's findings, engaging academic departments and faculty involved in the entrance exam to assess the potential impact on exam integrity and educational quality before implementing any changes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's desire for improved operational efficiency with the ethical obligation to ensure that any proposed changes do not negatively impact the quality of education or student welfare, particularly in the context of an entrance exam designed to assess academic readiness. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting the findings of an efficiency study and deciding on the appropriate course of action without compromising the integrity of the Qalam University College entrance examination process. The correct approach involves a thorough, multifaceted review of the efficiency study's findings, focusing on their potential impact on the fairness, validity, and reliability of the entrance exam. This includes consulting with academic departments, faculty involved in exam design and administration, and potentially student representatives to gather diverse perspectives. The justification for this approach is rooted in the ethical principles of fairness and academic integrity, which are paramount in university admissions. Specifically, any changes must align with the Qalam University College's stated mission and academic standards, ensuring that the entrance exam remains a robust and equitable measure of a candidate's potential. This approach prioritizes the educational mission over purely financial or administrative gains, adhering to the spirit of academic governance. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement changes based solely on the efficiency study's recommendations without further scrutiny. This fails to consider the potential unintended consequences on the educational quality and fairness of the entrance exam. Such an approach risks undermining the credibility of the admissions process and could lead to a decline in the academic caliber of admitted students, violating the university's commitment to academic excellence. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the efficiency study entirely without a proper evaluation of its findings. This demonstrates a lack of responsiveness to potential improvements and could lead to missed opportunities for beneficial operational adjustments. It also signals a disregard for data-driven decision-making, which is essential for continuous improvement in any academic institution. A third incorrect approach would be to implement changes that prioritize cost savings above all else, even if it means compromising the rigor or scope of the entrance examination. This is ethically unsound, as it suggests that financial considerations outweigh the fundamental purpose of the entrance exam, which is to assess a student's preparedness for higher education. This approach would likely lead to a perception of the university as prioritizing profit over academic quality. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of any proposed changes. This includes understanding the objectives of the study or proposal, identifying potential impacts, both positive and negative, on all stakeholders, students, faculty, administration, consulting relevant policies and ethical guidelines of the institution, seeking expert opinions, and making a decision that best serves the overarching mission and values of the university, with a particular emphasis on academic integrity and fairness. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for the Qalam University College's engineering program has achieved an entrance exam score that is below the stated minimum requirement for direct admission. However, the candidate has demonstrated exceptional aptitude in extracurricular science competitions and possesses a strong portfolio of personal projects related to engineering. The admissions committee is aware of the candidate's potential, but is also bound by the college's published admission criteria. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to take in this situation? Strictly adhering to Qalam University College's regulatory framework for entrance examinations and admissions. Option A. Informing the candidate that they do not meet the minimum entrance exam score requirement for direct admission and advising them to consider applying for a different program or reapplying in the future after improving their score. Option B. Allowing the candidate to retake the entrance exam immediately without any formal process for requesting a retake to give them another opportunity to meet the minimum score. Option C. Granting direct admission to the candidate, considering their extracurricular achievements and portfolio as sufficient compensation for the lower entrance exam score, and documenting this decision as an exceptional waiver. Option D. Recommending the candidate for a special review by a subcommittee to assess their overall potential and suitability for the engineering program, with the possibility of conditional admission based on specific academic performance in their first semester. The correct answer is C. Granting direct admission to the candidate, considering their extracurricular achievements and portfolio as sufficient compensation for the lower entrance exam score, and documenting this decision as an exceptional waiver. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in university admissions, balancing the desire to admit promising candidates with the need to adhere strictly to established academic and ethical guidelines. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of Qalam University College's admission policies, which are designed to ensure fairness, academic integrity, and the selection of students best suited for the college's programs. The pressure to admit a specific candidate, perhaps due to external influence or a perceived exceptional talent, can create a conflict with these established procedures. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising the integrity of the admissions process or violating any university regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against all stated admission criteria, including academic records, entrance exam scores, and any required supplementary materials. If the candidate falls short in a specific area, the appropriate action is to follow the established protocol for such situations, which may involve a formal appeal process, a request for additional documentation, or, if the criteria are definitively not met, a decision to decline admission. This approach is correct because it upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and ensures that admission decisions are based on objective, predefined standards, as mandated by Qalam University College's regulatory framework for admissions. It demonstrates a commitment to transparency and fairness, which are foundational ethical principles in academic institutions. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or alter the standard admission criteria for this candidate. This could manifest as overlooking a significantly low entrance exam score or accepting incomplete documentation without proper justification. Such actions would represent a failure to comply with Qalam University College's admission regulations, which are designed to maintain academic standards and prevent favoritism. Ethically, this approach is flawed as it undermines the fairness of the process for other applicants who have met all requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to exert undue influence or pressure on the admissions committee to accept the candidate despite clear deficiencies. This violates principles of professional integrity and can lead to a compromised student body, potentially impacting the college's reputation and the quality of its educational offerings. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the candidate's profile against the established Qalam University College admission criteria. If there are any ambiguities or potential exceptions, these should be addressed through the formal channels outlined in the university's policy documents. Professionals should prioritize adherence to regulations and ethical conduct, seeking guidance from senior members of the admissions committee or relevant university authorities if faced with complex or ethically ambiguous situations. The ultimate goal is to make decisions that are both fair to the applicant and in the best interest of the institution, upholding its academic standards and reputation. Question 20. Examination of the data shows that a prospective student for the Qalam University College entrance exam has obtained access to what appear to be actual examination questions from a previous year's test through an unofficial online forum. The student is considering using these questions to prepare, believing it will significantly improve their chances of admission. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for this student to take? Option A. Use the obtained questions as a primary study guide, memorizing as many answers as possible to ensure familiarity with the exact content that might appear. Option B. Share the obtained questions with other prospective students on the forum to collaboratively prepare and ensure everyone has an advantage. Option C. Thoroughly study the obtained questions to understand the types of topics and question formats, but refrain from memorizing specific answers, and then focus on general preparation for the current exam syllabus. Option D. Immediately disregard the obtained questions and focus solely on the official syllabus and approved study materials provided by Qalam University College, without any reference to the leaked material. The correct answer is C. Thoroughly study the obtained questions to understand the types of topics and question formats, but refrain from memorizing specific answers, and then focus on general preparation for the current exam syllabus. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a university entrance exam, especially at a competitive institution like Qalam University College, can lead individuals to consider shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in navigating these pressures while adhering strictly to the established examination regulations and ethical guidelines of Qalam University College. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate study strategies and prohibited actions that undermine the fairness and validity of the assessment process. The correct approach involves a student diligently preparing for the Qalam University College entrance exam through legitimate and ethical means. This includes understanding the syllabus, utilizing approved study materials, practicing with sample questions provided by the university, and seeking clarification from official university channels if needed. This approach is justified by the Qalam University College's commitment to fair and equitable assessment, as outlined in its examination regulations. These regulations implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of academic dishonesty, including the use of unauthorized aids or the sharing of exam content. Adhering to these rules ensures that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit, fostering a culture of integrity within the academic community. An incorrect approach would be to seek or use leaked examination questions. This action represents a direct violation of the Qalam University College's examination regulations, which are designed to ensure the integrity and fairness of the entrance exam. Obtaining and using leaked questions constitutes academic dishonesty and undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of respect for the institution's standards and the efforts of other candidates who are preparing honestly. Another incorrect approach would be to engage in collusion with other candidates to share answers during the exam. This also directly contravenes the examination regulations by violating the principle of individual assessment. Collusion distorts the results, making it impossible to accurately gauge each student's knowledge and abilities. It erodes trust in the examination system and can lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, which is detrimental to the academic standards of Qalam University College. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on memorization of answers from past, potentially outdated, exams without genuine understanding of the underlying concepts. While not as overtly dishonest as the previous examples, this approach fails to meet the spirit of the Qalam University College's assessment, which aims to evaluate critical thinking and problem-solving skills, not just rote memorization. It can lead to superficial knowledge and an inability to adapt to new or slightly varied questions, ultimately not preparing the student for the rigors of university-level study. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Qalam University College's examination regulations and ethical code. Candidates should prioritize honesty and integrity above all else. When faced with pressure or temptation, they should reflect on the long-term consequences of their actions, which can include disqualification, damage to reputation, and a compromised educational foundation. Seeking guidance from university admissions or examination boards on legitimate preparation methods is always a prudent step.